It's Frybo time!
No, it's Frybo time. Season 1, Episode 5. Frybo, welcome to Panda and Alex Complain About Steven Universe. I'm here, I'm Panda, and currently fronting is Wraith, the demon altar, or whatever you want to call it. And this is Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. You can call me Daft.
I just realized that we
Doesn't really
forgot
matter.
to link our social medias in the last episode, so I'm gonna not do that right
It's
now.
fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
no,
fine.
it's
It's
fine.
it's fine. We'll put it. You will put your social medias in the description. You can optionally leave mine out. I do not care.
All right, well, that's what you want to do. But yes, today we watched Frybo, which is the miraculous journey of how fries are born. Anyway, whatever. Here's the synopsis. Steven and Pearl are both looking for something. Steven his pants and Pearl a missing gem shard. I do actually like this bit where Pearl asks Steven where it could be, and Steven just starts basically doing that kid thing where you just dissociate while an adult talks to you, and halfway through the conversation you realize that they're still talking to you, but you don't actually know what they're saying because you're actually thinking to yourself. But that's fun. That's relatable. Uh, and then Steven finds out the reason why he can't find his pants is because the missing gem shard that Pearl was looking for was possessing his pants. Yet another possession. How do we want to talk about the plurality, Alec? Anyway, um,
How do you want to talk about the plurality? It's all about the
oh, it's all
plurality.
plurality here. 24/7 says the 365 days a year, not including holidays. Uh, but anyway, at this time, yeah, Steven manages to get the pair of pants gems back and is going to give it to Pearl, but that's when he runs into Petey. Now, Petey is the son of the local fry shop. It seems that they only sell fries on the beach boardwalk, and he has been.
That sounds deeply
It
unsatisfying.
does, maybe it's because I'm diabetic, but having only a pair of fries ain't exactly what I'm looking for, not gonna lie. Not but basically, Petey is the youngest member of the Fry family, unaffiliated with Futurama in all regards. But he's basically, as the new one, he's being forced to go into the slightly horrifying mascot costume that they have, called Frybo, which is a big cup of fries with a big smiling face. And also, seagulls keep attacking the person in the costume at all times because they look like giant
And
fries.
on the subject of the Fry family, it sure will be fun to talk about Ronaldo, huh?
Yeah, it'll be very, very fun and not at all aggravating. Uh, there's a bit I actually like where Steven, like, looks to his sorry, Petey is so annoyed with being in the mascot costume, and he just wants to enjoy his childhood, that he goes like, oh, if only there was a way for this stupid mascot costume to move on its own. And then Steven like goes and then he looks at his backpack, and then it cuts to Steven putting on the costume and then getting attacked by seagulls, and then he decides to put the crystal in the costume to make it alive, which I think is admittedly funny. Uh, and so now Frybo is alive, the mascot costume. Uh, and they tell it to dance, and it spawns fries out of its bottom and does a really stupid looking. I can only describe it as a flopping back and forth, but not falling over. Is the best approximation of a dance it can do. So then they,
Oh, that was really funny.
yeah, so then they hightail it off to the kiddie rides so that they can enjoy their childhoods together again. And would you actually like to describe what happened, Alex?
Oh boy. Oh, we're not going to get into the really messed up part yet, but on the seahorse ride, Petey has this lovely little conversation about jobs and the ethicality of capitalism.
Yeah.
That's actually a bit of an overstatement because PD isn't in a position to think about the ethicality of capitalism, but he basically has a conversation with Steven about how jobs pretty much break you from the inside out.
And that's not really an exaggeration. That is just kind of what he says. We're not like summarizing, like I don't know what you call it, but you get what I mean.
Yes, PD as a you know what? As an essential worker, has to perform all kinds of
Demeaning tasks.
not only demeaning tasks, but backbreaking labor for compensation that will not that will not provide him what he needs to basically move out of his home
And
to have a fulfilling
and
life.
recover from the seagull bites, I imagine.
Like,
A lot of this is
being a
sorry, a lot of this is contextualized by the fact that every time he puts the costume on, seagulls start brutally attacking him.
yeah, there isn't really an opportunity for the episode to talk about the ethicality of labor and the plight of like fast food workers, but it is so hard to be a fast food worker because my first job was a fast food job and it is incredibly difficult. Like people have no respect for customer service, the customer service industry. It's such a difficult industry to be in. And customer service representatives are some of the most like disrespected professions on the planet, even though that is a profession that takes legitimate skill to be good at, to master.
Yep.
And yet it's seen as a low form of labor because quote unquote anybody can do it. That's not true. They are lying to you. Not everyone can do that sort of job.
Absolutely.
I can't even really do that sort of job. I don't have the aptitude, but I have to work those kind of jobs because they're the easiest to get.
Yep. No, it's messed up. And that what is Petey's gotta do to be in the family
Oh, there
business.
were also references to the Gem War and Jill. Do you think we want to talk you want to take this episode to talk about the fat phobia?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Let me finish the synopsis since we kind of went derailed from there, which is funny because
Well,
they're
when you're talking about labor, when you're talking about labor,
what's the voice you're doing? But whatever.
I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with the state of the customer
That
service
yeah, that is
industry.
perfectly valid. But basically, I said derailed, but it's funny because they were on those kiddie rides that literally can't derail. But regardless, uh, the very last, basically, when you put a gem in one of those closed things, it just does whatever you tell it to do, which is troubling if you perhaps happen to passively say something literal like go out and make everyone eat fries, and therefore the Frybo crystal that's powering the Frybo mascot costume immediately goes out and starts kidnapping people and forcing fries down their throats in a horrifying monster imagery, which is fun. But so then they come across that and like panic is happening and people are going for fries, and then Lars gets thrown through the window and he coughs out fries and like yells that he doesn't even like fries. He's diabetic just like me, for real, which is why he works at a donut shop, of course. Um, and then Pearl comes back and she basically says, Steven, did you put that gem inside of the thing? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, didn't you hear anything I said about the deaths or the many deaths? Like, she basically said something like that. And he goes, no. And she goes, ah. And I almost wonder if people look at this like episode in higher quality because of this next moment. But Pearl throws a spear at the Frybo mascot costume, and out of it just gooshes like mustard and ketchup, but mostly ketchup to make it look like it's bleeding, like to an almost comically exaggerated extent. Uh, and I think that's the thing that strikes people the most about this episode is the fact that the walking mascot costume starts bleeding like nobody's tomorrow.
G-rated
G-rated
blood.
blood. The ketchup, which blinds Pearl, which means she can't finish the job uh, for some reason. But well, comedy. But so
Ha ha ha
Steven
ha
has to
ha! It's so
so funny.
funny.
Steven has to figure out a way to defeat Frybo. So he decides to give Frybo a taste of his own medicine and then proceeds to take off all of his clothes and put the gems that Pearl dropped to command them to defeat Frybo, which is interesting because the reason why we're in this situation in the first place is because Steven did that, but the solution is to also do that to beat up Frybo.
Listen, chill. Don't think about it too
That's
much.
fair. I'm just like I'm saying in
No, I'm joking.
yeah, I'm just thinking in like in our brain space. It's like I kind of like if I was writing this, I'd probably write it like he tries to do that, and then it immediately fails, and they just fuse with Frybo into an even. Well, I think it'd be
No,
funny.
I need to explain this joke better. I tell you, don't think about it too much, but we're doing a podcast where our job is literally to think about it too much.
Yeah, sorry. I just got the visual joke in our head that like all the clothes that like Steven willingly lets get possessed like goes to Frybo to combine into like a super thing, but all it does is it just puts clothes on Frybo and like nothing else.
That would have been funny.
Admittedly, would have been kind of funny, yeah. But yeah, it just kind of ends and they like take the gem out of Frybo and they give it a Viking burial funeral because it's so ungodly greasy that you could probably smell it from miles away. And then it sort of ends on a
Hmm.
positive note of like Petey's dad like accepting Petey as like a valued member of the Fry family. I don't even think that's their last name, really. I think I just said that on the spot. Uh,
He was all like, son, you are a cherished part of this corporate entity.
which is sort of a
That's literally what he
no,
said!
yeah, no, it is like it was just kind of a non-ending that doesn't feel like it addresses the actual thing that PD was talking about because
It
the
doesn't.
whole thing where he mentions with the job is that and I had a really good quote too is that like jobs just give you cash that can't buy back what the job takes. That doesn't like I guess you could feel that what is saying is that a job should be with people that you love or something which I mean, yeah, that is fundamentally a good thing, but that doesn't actually we're talking about this as like what would we say we're on the political spectrum? Like socialist, communist, anarcho communist? So I don't know what you mean. Somewhere in that dimension.
No, Jill, we're good little
You're right.
capitalists.
I'm so sorry for that joke, everybody. I'll crucify myself in my backyard to make up for that. It'll be fun. I'll use plywood, just like the good old days. Uh,
uh, Anyways, we're good little capitalists, and we definitely don't have very thought out opinions on the state of labor in the United States.
especially as a diabetic with who's a system. But anyway, let's take a good freaking. I didn't swear that
We
time.
are
I didn't
also
swear.
good Christian children.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Demon altar. Anyway, there was like this episode. Like, it's kind of weird. For every good this episode does, I kind of have something I really don't like about it. And you mentioned this, Alex, but I gotta be honest, the way Steven was treated this episode kind of felt fat phobic, if I'm gonna be brutally real. Like undressing a
Oh, yes, that fat phobia.
when like fat characters get undressed and the joke is that they're not wearing pants and they're not like clothes. I don't know. It's just kind of a joke that I think is uncomfortable and I haven't really been shown to the. I don't know. There's no other characters in the show that are really
Well,
fat. Like Amethyst.
especially considering the fact that Steven gets thinned up the more budget the show loses, I think your apprehensions here have a little bit more grounding to them than you're
That
giving them
is true,
credit
but I was
for.
talking about like even in the moment, even without the context of that knowledge, I felt that this was kind of a unsavory joke. Like since each of these episodes we record, I try to like just keep the discussion about what came before and what this episode adds, and that's it. But what I'm seeing here is like just kind of an unsavory joke surrounding a fat character, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And like sure there's another character like a fat character in the show so far, Greg, but he's really the only one, and he's like still a little too early and not focused enough for me to really make a good gauge on that. It's a whole ordeal.
Oh boy, we're definitely gonna have to talk about
Yeah,
Greg,
I
aren't
was
we?
gonna mention it, but like the closest we have to another plus size character is Amethyst, who's clearly like the curviest of the crystal gems, but her whole deal is also like, wait, we haven't gotten to that point yet. But she lives in a trash dump. She like doesn't care, and she's like reckless and kind of I don't want to say the word stupid. That feels mean, but like
Yeah, like the show has always been low key fat phobic. Let's be honest
I'm
here.
just thinking that like she isn't even drawn with a stomach. She does that weird thing that animation does, which certainly there are people with this body type that exist, but it seems to be the only kind of fat woman that they can draw, which is like this sort of like kind of slightly pinched waist, but it's thicker than normal, which really all it does is just make it look like an average sized woman in the grand scheme of things.
Yep.
I don't know how else to put this. Like Steven is drawn with a stomach, but Amethyst very clearly isn't. And I don't know, just don't undress your fat characters to like joke that they're naked in public or something.
Oh, that was really
It was
uncomfortable.
especially when the underwear like flew off his body. It just felt, I don't know.
I think both of us like audibly recoiled.
Yeah, audibly recoiled. Uh and that was an audible recoil right there because we didn't speak.
Pretty much. I mean, what do you say about this? I think people have been talking about the fat phobia pretty much ever since like episode 1, but then you like rewatch it and like it's we have like 11 years of hindsight. Well, at least I do.
yeah.
And it's like you see that a lot of the problems that people were talking about when they were discussing the show on the internet are very much there, but nobody really wanted to discuss those problems but when the show was initially airing because it was quote unquote a breath of fresh air from what we had been given before.
Steven
People were
Universe,
just
it's a
captivated by what the show was presenting that they didn't criticize the material that they were being given, which was less than stellar.
and it also, I remember at the time when Steven Universe was first coming out, before I even watched it in high school. I we remembered that when it first came out, it had a lot of a slew of like hate and other things for it being like a largely, was it because it was a like largely woman led show or something like that? There was a number of factors, and I remember it getting to like a very
Yes.
serious point at like some instances, and I do worry that that built up an unfortunate, what would you say, like a knee-jerk response to criticism being thrown Steven Universe's way, that it's,
It did,
yeah,
yes.
it's kind of like when, speaking as a trans woman ourselves, it's kind of like when a trans woman does something bad, and it, or like something mildly like something that can at best be considered like just ignore this please, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and then they start getting like dogpiled to heck and back. that's kind of what I like think about with Steven Universe, where it's like it's hard to throw an actual legitimate critique when the overarching thing at the moment it was largely disingenuous and mostly using it as an excuse to throw hate at something they hate for hypocritical reasons, which leads into the other problem, which we're not going to talk about right now, but you can see how that may mutate into a sort of knee jerk defense mechanism.
Ironically, the same chuds who hated Steven Universe when it came out began to love it as the show. I believe those guys actually really started loving the show when a lot of the people who liked the show were just like, this isn't very good.
It's weird how that works, but we'll get there when we get there. Uh, but yes, I honestly, this episode, like, this is a very. In the same vein of getting nothing but a box of fries from a beachside stand, a very mixed bag. And that's kind of. Oh, wait, the very last thing I do have to say is that it kind of was funny when Pearl said that everyone was scared and hated the mascot anyway. Like, when the only person who liked it was the business person, the dad.
That is funny. The last thing I have to talk about, since I already talked about the seahorse ride conversation about labor, and we already discussed the fat phobia, is that Pearl in her little diatribe, and every time she speaks in this episode, makes a very overt reference to people dying and and the gem technology used in this episode being used for nefarious purposes, which is an allusion to the war, which is very silently being talked about in like the background. But as this show continues living, it will start becoming a huge focal point, for better or for worse.
Speaking of background, Amethyst and Garnet did not appear in this episode.
They did not. This is the first episode without Garnet and Amethyst.
It was only one crystal gem, which is an interesting milestone to note.
Well, and it won't, and I don't consider that an honor for reasons that will become more apparent as we continue talking about this show.
Okay, but yeah, that's all I got personally.
That's it for Frybo. Oh, I like Petey, actually. I think he's the only member of the Fry family that I like, if not only for his conversation about labor.
No,
Like,
yeah,
I
that's
like that
perfectly
little guy.
fair. I thought that the voice actor doing his job did a good job portraying this kind of character, and I'd like to applaud that work. Uh, yeah, no, that's all I got.
I wish he showed up in the show more, but I appreciate what I've been given.
I think like a box of fries, you get what you get, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yep.
But is would you say that's all from your end, Alex?
Yeah, I've said everything I wanted to say.
Okay, well, as usual, I'm Transpanda. You can find me on Tumblr as Transpanda1. And this is Alex.
Hello. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Good night, everyone.
If I could begin to be half of what you think of me, I could do about anything. I could even learn how to love like you.